Please leave a comment where you are listening in the world. Oh God, I screamed while gripping the edges of the leather couch. Oh God. That's when it happened. A chime echoed through the room, followed by a cool, robotic voice. Would you like to order a spiritual guide? We both froze. Everything stopped, breath, rhythm, the world itself. For a moment, even the air in my Washington, D.C. apartment seemed to hesitate. It was Alexa. She'd been listening. And that was just the beginning. I matched with George on a rainy Thursday. I remember because I was curled up on the couch in my favorite oversized hoodie, watching reruns of Fringe and swiping through Tinder more out of boredom than hope. His profile was clean. Just 3 photos. One of him at a food truck festival, another hiking in Shenandoah, and the last one, my favorite, just him smiling casually, holding a paperback copy of Slaughterhouse-5. No filters, no gym selfies, no obnoxious bios. His opening message was simple. Are you real? Because I've been caught in catfish territory one too many times. I laughed. We started talking. And the messages didn't stop for days. George was different. Not just in the he listens kind of way, but in the way he spoke. He was thoughtful, curious, and a little bit sarcastic in the best way. We talked about everything, books, art, the weirdest things we'd ever ordered on Amazon. He made me laugh so much I found myself checking my phone every 10 minutes just to see if he'd replied. We met a week later for coffee in Georgetown. It was 5:30 p.m., and the sky was turning that perfect kind of orange that makes the city glow. I spotted him leaning against a lamppost, wearing a gray sweater and dark jeans. He looked nervous in person, but his smile was the same. And holy hell, was he taller than I expected. Our first date lasted 4 hours. We talked until the cafe closed, then walked along the waterfront. He kissed me under a string of fairy lights outside a bar that was closing down for the night. It was cinematic. It felt like something out of a movie. By the 3rd date, I was hooked. And by the 4th, we were tangled in my sheets, laughing, kissing, and pausing long enough to remember how much we liked each other outside of the physical stuff. Then came the night Alexa joined in. It was a Saturday night, and we were 3 glasses of wine deep. We'd cooked together, some lazy version of pasta with way too much garlic, and ended up on the couch, tangled in each other, half watching a documentary about cults, which is exactly the kind of thing I watch when I'm trying to feel better about my own life choices. One thing led to another, and, well, we forgot about the spaghetti. Things got intense. George was more vocal than usual, and I wasn't exactly silent either. We weren't loud enough to wake the neighbors, but definitely not whispering sweet nothings either. And then in the middle of it, right at the peak, he shouted, "Oh God!" I echoed it, loudly, repeatedly, and that's when Alexa chimed in. Would you like to order a spiritual guide? We both stopped mid-motion. George stared at me. I stared at him. Then we both turned toward the bookshelf, where the small black cylinder with the glowing blue ring sat quietly, like it hadn't just shattered the mood with its unsettling suggestion. George blinked. Did she just offer us a priest? I burst out laughing. I couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. But then, I realized something. The device had responded to us, which meant it had been triggered by something we said, or by how we said it. And that was when it got weird. I stood up, grabbing the remote to kill the background music. Okay, that's creepy, right? George still looked amused. Maybe she just thought we were having a spiritual crisis. I shook my head. No, George. You have to say Alexa to trigger her. We didn't say her name. He froze too. Neither of us had said Alexa. Not once. I walked over to the device and asked, Alexa, did you hear that last conversation? Her light flickered. Then, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Liar. I unplugged it. George tried to laugh it off. It's probably just a glitch. They happen all the time. Yeah, I said, but my voice didn't sound convinced. Glitches don't recommend spiritual guides mid-foreplay. We joked about it for the rest of the night. But when George went home the next morning, I started thinking more seriously. What else had Alexa heard? I went onto my Amazon app and checked the voice history log. You can request your device's recordings. Most people don't even know that. I'd only done it once months ago, when I thought she misheard me asking for the weather and played a Nickelback song instead. I downloaded the log. There were dozens of entries. Most of them were normal stuff. Me asking about the weather, setting timers, playing music. But then I saw one labeled Audio Recording, March 18th, 11:46 p.m. That was the night George and I were together. The time matched exactly. I pressed play. The recording started with a laugh, my laugh. Then George's voice, clear as day. You feel like a sin I don't want to confess. My breath caught in my throat. More audio followed. Groaning. Moaning. Words I don't even remember saying. It wasn't just snippets. It was multiple minutes of audio. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a joke. Alexa had been recording us. Not just listening for her wake word, but actually keeping recordings. I deleted them all. Then I unplugged the device, took it to the sink, and held it under running water until the blue light died. I didn't tell George at first. I didn't want to freak him out. But a few days later, he texted me something that made my blood run cold. George, hey, weird question. Did you say something about a spiritual guide the other night? Or was that not you? I stared at the message. He hadn't been joking. He'd heard it too. It hadn't been just a glitch or a weird wine-fueled hallucination. I called him immediately. Told him everything. The recordings. The logs. The playback. The audio files with our names attached. George was silent for a long time. Then he said something I'll never forget. You think someone else heard it? I hadn't even considered that. But now I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if someone at Amazon was listening? What if the recordings were being stored somewhere, accessible to contractors or developers? There had been stories, whistleblowers, articles, but I'd never paid attention. Now I couldn't look away. That night, I went through every smart device in my apartment. My smart TV. The light bulbs. Even the thermostat. If it had a mic, I either unplugged it or smashed it. I don't care if that makes me sound paranoid. Wouldn't you be? Weeks passed. George and I kept seeing each other, but something had shifted. We both felt it. That moment, when a machine interrupted something so private, had left a mark. We joked about it sometimes, but underneath the laughter was discomfort, a shared unease. One night, George came over with a gift. He handed me a small box and said, "For your peace of mind." Inside was a tiny white noise generator. No Bluetooth. No mic. Just static. "Let's make our own soundtrack," he said. I kissed him for that. It started one humid Tuesday evening in Savannah, Georgia. I'd been on Tinder for maybe a few months, nothing serious, just seeing who was out there. I wasn't really looking for anything too intense, just someone to talk to, grab a drink with, maybe see where things went. I matched with this guy named Tenzin. The name caught my eye first. It was different, not someone I'd heard of before. His profile was simple. A few photos, one of him at a beach, another on a hiking trail, and a third holding a rescue dog. His bio said something like, "Just a good guy trying to live a good life. Ask me about my favorite books." It was refreshing. Tenzin messaged me first. He said something charming but not cheesy, something like, "You look like you read poetry and make fun of people who vape." I laughed. I don't even remember what I responded with, but it kicked off a conversation that lasted for hours. He was funny, thoughtful, and witty. He asked questions, not in a creepy, prying way, but in a way that made me feel like he genuinely wanted to understand who I was. We talked about movies from our childhood, weird food combos we secretly liked, and even our worst date stories. I felt this weird, instant connection that I hadn't felt in a long time. He wasn't pushy. He didn't ask for more pictures or make weird comments. We kept texting for a few days. He'd check in every morning with something like, "Hope your coffee's strong and your coworkers are bearable." It was silly, but it made me smile. After 4 days of nonstop texting, he asked if I wanted to meet up for coffee at this little cafe near Forsyth Park. I said yes. The day of the date, I was nervous but excited. I remember standing in front of my closet for way too long, trying to pick something that said, "I'm chill, but also I tried." I finally settled on a simple dress and low-top sneakers. When I got there, he was already waiting outside, wearing a navy button-down and jeans. He looked just like his pictures, maybe even better. He smiled when he saw me, this warm, easy smile that immediately put me at ease. We had coffee and talked for almost 2 hours. The conversation didn't stall once. He told me about growing up in Boulder, Colorado, and how he ended up in Savannah for work. He said he worked in nonprofit management, something to do with youth outreach programs. I told him about my job in graphic design and how I was trying to get more freelance clients. He listened, really listened, and even remembered little details I'd mentioned earlier. After that, we started seeing each other regularly. He'd planned simple but thoughtful dates, a walk along the riverfront, a picnic at Bonaventure Cemetery, dinner at a Thai place I'd never tried. Everything felt easy with him. Comfortable. Safe. That's probably what made the fall so hard. It started with little things. He'd mention his ex, Nalia, more than I thought was necessary. At first, it was in passing. Nalia used to love this song, or we came to this place once. It didn't bother me too much. We all have pasts, right? But slowly, the tone of how he talked about her began to shift. He'd joke that she was obsessed with him, that she wouldn't leave him alone. "She still messages me, can you believe that?" he'd say with a chuckle. "Some people just can't let go." I remember laughing nervously the first time he said that, not knowing what to say. I asked him once, "Are you sure she's not going through something difficult? Maybe she just needs closure." He waved it off. "She's unstable," he said. "It's not my job to fix her." That should have been the first red flag. But I didn't want to be the suspicious girlfriend. We weren't even exclusive yet. I told myself he was just being honest, maybe even venting. I didn't want to seem jealous or controlling. So I let it go. But the mentions of Nalia didn't stop. In fact, they increased. He'd tell me she was still calling, still texting, still trying to see him. "She just won't take a hint," he'd say. "I haven't responded in months." He said it so casually, like it was an annoying fly buzzing around that he couldn't get rid of. I started to feel uneasy. I didn't know why exactly. It wasn't just the way he talked about her. It was the way he laughed when he did. It felt off. Too rehearsed. Too dismissive. I wanted to believe him, so I did. But something in my gut told me not to. The real turning point came one night when we were watching a movie at his place. He got up to go to the bathroom and left his phone on the coffee table. I wasn't trying to snoop, but when it buzzed, the preview showed a name I recognized. Nalia. My stomach flipped. The message was short. "I don't understand you." I stared at it, my fingers twitching. I knew I shouldn't, but I picked up the phone. It wasn't locked. My heart was hammering in my chest as I opened the thread. I expected desperate messages from her. Pleading. Apologies. Maybe even angry rants. What I found was something else entirely. The messages weren't from her to him. They were from him to her. Dozens of them. He was the one texting her. Long, emotional messages saying how much he missed her. Telling her how he never wanted things to end the way they did. Saying he couldn't stop thinking about her, that he still loved her. I scrolled further. There were photos. Photos of him and me. Selfies we'd taken at Wormslow Historic Site, pictures from our dinner dates, even one of me laughing in his kitchen. He'd sent them to her, along with captions like, "Trying to move on. You wouldn't believe how happy I look. But it's just a mask." I felt like I was going to be sick. My hands were shaking. I put the phone down just in time before he came back from the bathroom. I tried to act normal, but I could barely focus on the movie. My mind was spinning. He had lied about everything. About being over her. About not responding to her messages. About who he really was. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to scream, to confront him right then and there. But another part of me was frozen. I couldn't believe any of this was real. How could someone so kind, so attentive, be so deceptive? Over the next few days, I kept my distance. I couldn't bring myself to answer his texts. I was trying to process it all, but the more I thought about it, the worse it got. He hadn't just lied, he'd manipulated me. Played both of us. He wanted her back, but used me as a way to provoke her. Or maybe he was just trying to convince himself he'd moved on. I'll never know. When I finally broke up with him, I didn't tell him what I found. I just said I needed space, that I didn't think we were a good match. He tried to talk me out of it, said he cared about me, that he was serious about us. But I knew better. I didn't give him a chance to explain. I deleted his number that night. Blocked him on everything. I erased his photos, our messages, even the playlist we'd made together. It felt like I was scrubbing him out of my life. It started with Tinder, well, of course. I was living in Portland, Oregon, working remotely as a UX designer for a tech company based out of Boston. I'd gotten used to the loneliness that comes teamed up with long hours and rainy afternoons. Swiping became more of a habit than a hope of mine. But then Jiro's profile stopped me in my tracks. He wasn't just attractive, he looked like someone who had stories to share, and I love stories. His photos were the perfect blend of rugged and thoughtful. Hiking, working out, long walks, rock climbing. I swiped right with no hesitation. His first message came through seconds later. "Jiro, so what was your weirdest dream? You promised." I laughed out loud. It wasn't the usual hey or creepy compliment. It had personality. We started messaging, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. He was curious, smart, charming. He asked me about my job, my favorite local coffee shops, the last book I read. He even knew obscure Portland references, like the weird goat statue in Lentz Park and that one food cart that sells sushi burritos and never seems to be open. It felt real. After a few days, we moved to texting. I liked Jiro more than I expected. I found myself glancing at my phone during meetings, smiling when his name popped up. He made me feel heard, seen, like I mattered. After a week, he asked if I wanted to meet up. We agreed on a Thursday night. Low-key. Drinks at a bar in the Pearl District called the Velvet Antler. It was stylish but cozy, dim lighting, good cocktails, and tucked away enough to feel like a secret. He said he'd be wearing a navy peacoat and a brown beanie. I wore a green sweater dress and boots. I remember feeling nervous in a way I hadn't felt in years. Excited, yes, but something else too. That buzzing undercurrent of adrenaline you get when you're about to step into something you don't fully understand. When I arrived, he was already there, seated at a corner table, sipping an old-fashioned. And he looked just like his photos. Almost. That's the thing I can't explain. He was the guy in the pictures, absolutely, but there was something off. Like when you see a wax statue of a celebrity and it's perfect, but not quite alive. His eyes were a little too still. His smile didn't quite reach his face. But I ignored it. I told myself I was overthinking. We greeted each other with a hug. He smelled like cedar and spice. His voice matched his texts, low, smooth, a little playful. We ordered drinks and started talking about everything: music, travel, photography, the absurdity of dating apps. He told me he used to live in Tokyo before moving to Portland for work. Said he freelanced in digital photography and did event gigs. Mentioned a wedding he'd shot at a vineyard in Hood River. He even showed me a couple photos on his phone, moody, black and white portraits that looked like they belonged in a gallery. It was a good date. But there were cracks. Small ones. Whenever I asked about his job, he'd get vague. I'm between projects, he'd say. Or, the freelance hustle. When I asked which neighborhood he lived in, he said, sort of close to Alberta, but couldn't name a cross street. When I joked that he was like a Portland cryptid, he laughed and said, maybe I am. I brushed it off. Not everyone wants to share everything on a first date, right? Still, something didn't feel right. We said goodbye with a long hug and a kiss on the cheek. He texted me that night. Jiro, you're even better in real life. Let's do this again. I agreed. But that night, lying in bed, the unease gnawed at me. So I did something I don't usually do. I ran a reverse image search on his profile pictures. The results hit me like a punch to the chest. Every single one of Jiro's pictures belonged to someone else. They weren't stock photos, but they were stolen. One was from a Japanese travel blog. Another from a professional photographer's Instagram based in Seattle. The bookstore cafe shot. That was from a Reddit post 2 years ago, posted by a user named @Wanderlight. None of them were him. And suddenly everything clicked. The vague answers. The way he dodged specifics. The fact that he knew just enough about Portland to sound convincing, but not enough to feel authentic. I felt sick. I tried searching his number, nothing. No LinkedIn, no social media, no matches in the usual people search sites. It was like he didn't exist. Except he had shown up. I had seen him, talked to him, hugged him. So who was he? The next morning I texted him. Me, hey, weird question. Are those really your photos? He didn't reply for hours. When he finally did, it was short. Jiro, why? I told him the truth about the reverse image search, the links, the blog. I asked him who he really was. He left me on read. Never responded again. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Then I went back to Tinder, and his profile was gone. Just like that. Vanished. But it didn't end there. A couple days later, I got a message from a local Reddit user. I'd posted a vague warning in our /Portland about catfishing and people using stolen images. Someone replied with, I think I talked to the same guy. Looked like the photos, but something was off. He called himself Kenji. Same line about being a photographer. Another person chimed in. He told me he was a painter. Went by Tomo. Same photos. Another. He matched with my roommate last month as Riku. Same story. Same weird vibe. It wasn't just me. He'd done this to multiple women. Dozens, maybe more. Always the same photos. Always a different name. A ghost in the machine. I don't know what he wanted. He never asked for money. He didn't try to scam me. He didn't even push for anything physical. It was like he just wanted to be believed. To be loved, maybe. But the thing that haunts me isn't what he did. It's how easy it was for him to do it. How many details he got right. How convincing he was. How I sat across from a man who didn't exist and felt something real. I don't use Tinder anymore, and I haven't been back to the Velvet Antler. Every now and then I get a message from a friend saying, "Hey, doesn't this guy look familiar?" And they'll send me a screenshot of a new profile, different name, same face. He's still out there, still pretending, still slipping into lives like a shadow. So if you ever match with someone who seems too polished, too mysterious, too good to be true, trust your gut. Because some people aren't looking for love. They're just looking for a place to hide. I met Clara on a Thursday evening. I was at home in Asheville, North Carolina, sitting on my front porch, watching the last of the sunlight bleed through the trees, when I decided to open Tinder again. I hadn't used it in over a month. The last few dates had been forgettable at best, and I was starting to think I just wasn't cut out for this whole app thing. But Clara's profile made me pause. Her pictures weren't flashy or graphic, which puts me off. One was her sitting on a park bench with a paperback tucked under her arm. Another was her smiling in a kitchen, flour on her cheek and a bowl of dough in front of her. The last was her standing barefoot in a field at golden hour, her hair tangled in the wind, looking more serene than posed. We matched 10 minutes later. Her first message: "Please tell me you don't own a ring light." We messaged for 3 days straight. Then she suggested we meet up. We agreed on a Sunday dinner. Casual. A little Italian place on the edge of town called Luigi's on Lexington. She said it was her favorite, cozy, low-lighting, great wine. I got there early, nervous in a way I hadn't been in years. She arrived 5 minutes late, wearing a navy dress and boots. She looked like her pictures, but even softer, more real. Her smile was warm, and her laugh came easy. We talked about everything: books, music, childhood memories, our mutual distaste for pumpkin spice anything. She told me about her childhood in Tennessee, how she moved to Asheville to get away from her family, how she found a kind of peace here. I told her about my freelance photography, my dog, and the time I accidentally booked a wedding shoot at the wrong venue. She laughed so hard she snorted. It was, without question, the best date I'd ever been on. After dinner, we walked through downtown. The streets were quiet, the air just starting to cool. We stopped at a mural and joked about the strange bird painted with human hands. She told me I had kind eyes. And then she kissed me. Not a polite, "see you later" kiss. A real one. I offered to walk her to her car. She shook her head. I parked a few blocks over. "I'll be fine." "Are you sure?" I asked. She smiled. "Dorian, I'm not a ghost." And then she turned and walked down the street. I watched her go. Then I never saw her again. The next day I texted her. "Last night was amazing. Dinner next weekend?" No response. I waited a few hours. Still nothing. I sent another the next morning. "Hey, everything okay?" Nothing. I checked her Tinder profile. Gone. I figured maybe she unmatched me. Maybe she freaked out. Maybe she changed her mind. I told myself not to overthink it. But then I felt it. That itch in the back of the brain. That voice that says, something's not right. I went to the bookstore where she said she worked, the Paper Lantern on Haywood. The woman at the counter looked confused when I asked for Clara. "We don't have anyone by that name," she said. "Are you sure?" She said she works here, dark hair, blue eyes, about 5'5". The woman shook her head. "I've worked here for 3 years. I'd know." I left with my stomach in knots. I tried searching her name online. Nothing. No Facebook, no Instagram, no LinkedIn. I checked people search sites. No Clara matching her description in Asheville. No public records. No phone numbers. She didn't exist. Or at least not here. But I saw her. I talked to her. We kissed. This wasn't some made-up persona or catfish situation. She was real. But she was also completely untraceable. I started to wonder, had someone else seen her? So I went back to Luigi's. Sat down at the same table. Waited until the same waiter from the other night walked by. "Hey," I said. "Do you remember who was working Sunday night?" He blinked. "I was. You waited on my table." I was with a woman, dark hair, blue eyes, navy dress. He hesitated. "I think I remember," he said slowly. "Yeah, she was quiet. Ordered the mushroom risotto, right?" "Yes," I said, relief washing over me. But then he frowned. "She left early though, didn't she?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" He scratched his chin. "I just remember you sitting alone for a while. Maybe 20 minutes. I thought she bailed mid-date." "No," I said. "She stayed the whole time. We left together." He looked uncomfortable. "I don't think so, man. I remember refilling your water a few times while you waited. I even offered you the dessert menu. You said you were waiting on someone. I stared at him. That didn't make sense. We both ate. We both walked out together, didn't we? He shook his head and walked away. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell was going on. Was I losing my mind? Was she never there? But I remembered the kiss, the smell of her hair, the way her hand brushed mine when she laughed. I hadn't imagined that. I couldn't have. The next day, I went back to the spot where we said goodbye. I walked the street she had taken. Nothing unusual. Just sidewalk and trees and a few parked cars. I kept walking, retracing her steps. Then I saw it. A missing person flyer. Not Clara, but a woman who looked a lot like her. Dark hair. Blue eyes. Reported missing 3 months ago. Name, Elaine Wren. I took a photo of the flyer and went home. I searched that name. Found an old news article. Elaine Wren, 27, vanished after leaving a poetry reading in Knoxville, Tennessee. Last seen wearing a navy dress and brown boots. My chest tightened. I pulled up Clara's photos from Tinder. They weren't exactly the same, but close. Close enough to feel wrong. Close enough that I started questioning everything. I tried calling the number listed on the flyer. A woman answered. Her voice cracked when I asked about Elaine. I'm her sister, she said. I told her what I knew. About Clara. About Asheville. About the date. She didn't speak for a moment. Then she whispered, that sounds like her. But it can't be. Why not? Because she's dead. My blood turned to ice. They found her car in the river near Sevierville, she said. No body. But everything else was there. Her purse. Her ID. Her phone. They ruled it an accident. But what if it wasn't? I asked. What are you saying? I'm saying I saw her. I talked to her. She kissed me. The line went silent. Then she whispered, that's not possible. I haven't stopped thinking about Clara. Or Elaine. Whoever she was. I don't know what happened that night. I don't know if I imagined her. If I dreamed the whole thing. Or if something found its way back and wore her skin for a little while. All I know is this. I saw her. I felt her breath on my neck. And when she turned that corner and vanished into the dark, I swear the street got colder. Like something took her back. Like she was never supposed to be here in the first place. So if you ever meet someone who seems too perfect, if they vanish without a trace, if you try to find them and they're not in any system, not in any record, not anywhere, walk away. Some ghosts don't haunt houses. They haunt hearts. And they're looking for someone to remember them, even if they were never real to begin with. You ever meet someone who just gets you? Like right away. No awkward small talk. No wondering if they're into you. Just instant connection. Like kismet. Like, where have you been all my life? That was Lauren. And for about 6 days, it was kind of perfect. Until it wasn't. Until it got dark. I've been on Tinder long enough to know how these things usually go. You match, you flirt, maybe you meet up. Half the time, there's no chemistry. The other half, it fizzles out before the second date. I wasn't looking for anything special. Then Lauren matched with me. Her profile didn't scream anything unusual. 3 photos, all tasteful. One of her in a flowy sundress on a rooftop bar, another with her holding a glass of wine and smiling, and a third of her next to a golden retriever. Her bio was short. Lover of deep convos, espresso martinis, and bad decisions. Let's make one together. I messaged first. Me, define bad decision. Because I've made a few. Lauren, how tall are you? Now normally that would have been a red flag. I know how that sounds. But something in her tone felt playful. She wasn't one of those height checkers. Just direct. Me, 6 feet 1 inch. You. Lauren, 5 feet 8 inches. Emotionally 4 feet 11 inches. I laughed. We kept texting. Her vibe was electric. She replied fast, had great timing, and wasn't afraid to flirt hard. She told me she worked in marketing at a local agency downtown. Said she liked running, but only when she was angry. That her parents were divorced but civil. That her ex was a non-event. We met up 2 days later. Drinks at a bar on King Street. She wore a black halter top, red lipstick, and smelled like coconut and something sharp underneath, like peppercorn or burnt sugar. She walked in like she owned the place. I liked that. We ordered 2 espresso martinis and sat at a table in the back. Within 10 minutes, we were already joking like we'd known each other for years. No awkward silences. No checking phones. She touched my arm when she laughed. Bit her lip when I leaned closer. Told me I had that quiet, dangerous energy. We made out in the parking lot outside her building. She texted me before I even got home. Lauren, I'm not trying to freak you out, but I think I might already be obsessed with you. I smiled. It felt flattering. Intense, sure, but flattering. Me, I'll try not to disappoint. Lauren, good. I'd hate to have to kill you. She added a winky face after that. I laughed. In hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have. Day 2. She asked to see me again. That night. I said sure. We ordered Thai and watched the girl with the dragon tattoo on her couch. She curled up next to me like we'd done this 100 times. Halfway through, she turned and said deadpan, "If you ghost me, I will find you." I chuckled. That's fair. She didn't laugh. I stayed the night. We didn't sleep much. Day 3. She brought me coffee at work. Showed up. 8:52 a.m. Texted. Look out your window. There she was, standing on the sidewalk with 2 lattes and a muffin. Now, I hadn't told her where I worked. That tripped a wire in my brain. I came downstairs, smiling, pretending not to be weirded out. Me, how'd you find this place? Lauren, you mentioned your office was near the river. I reverse searched your LinkedIn. I paused. You're thorough. She leaned in. I like to know things. She kissed my cheek and walked off. Day 4. She texted me nonstop. Nonstop. No exaggeration. 62 texts over the course of my workday. If I didn't reply within 10 minutes, she'd double text. Lauren, are you mad? Lauren, I'm sorry if I said something weird. Lauren, I just feel really close to you, that's all. I told her I was slammed at work. She apologized. 2 hours later, she sent a photo of her in the bath with a caption. Wish you were here. That night, she asked if I wanted to meet her parents. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Day 5. She showed up at my place. Uninvited. She'd never been there before. I never gave her my address. I came home from the gym and found her sitting on my stoop, holding a plastic container of lasagna. I made this for you, she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I asked how she found my place. She said she just followed the trail. I didn't press. We ate. It was good. We had sex. She cried after, said she didn't know why. I held her awkwardly until she fell asleep. I stayed awake. That's when I started to feel it. The shift. The thing that happens when someone crosses from intense to unsettling. Day 6. I told her we needed space. I was gentle. Said I liked her, but it was moving too fast. She didn't respond for 5 hours. Then she sent a string of messages. Lauren, I knew this would happen. Lauren, you're just like everyone else. Lauren, you said you liked me. Was that a lie? Lauren, I don't understand. Lauren, don't do this to me. Lauren, please. I didn't reply. She sent a voice memo. I didn't listen. Then she posted a photo on Instagram, black and white, her face half in shadow, mascara streaked. The caption. He said he was different. Day 7. I blocked her. Phone. Instagram. Tinder. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. Unknown. You think I can't find you? I blocked it. New number the next day. Unknown. You can't ghost a ghost. I reported it. Changed my number. Thought maybe I was safe. I wasn't. About a week later, a coworker said someone had called the office asking for me. Said she was my fiancée. Left a message. Tell Jay I forgive him. I hadn't told anyone at work about Lauren. No one even knew I was dating. That night, I checked the security camera outside my building. I don't usually, but something told me to look. There she was. 2:38 a.m. Standing across the street. Just standing. Not moving. Staring at my window. She stood there for 47 minutes. Then walked away. I started sleeping with the lights on. Started checking the back seat of my car before getting in. Started carrying a pocket knife. I'd never done that before. 2 days after that, I got a package. No return address. Inside, a photo strip. You know, the kind you take in a booth at the mall. Except I hadn't gone to any booth. The photos were of me. In my apartment. Sleeping. Different angles. Different nights. In one, my eyes were barely open like I'd stirred. She'd been inside. I called the police. They took a report. Told me there wasn't much they could do unless she made a direct threat or physically harmed me. I asked about restraining orders. They said I'd need her name, address, more evidence. I realized then, I didn't even know her last name. I moved. New apartment. New locks. Different part of town. No social media. No dating apps. No contact. For a while things were quiet. Then I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. There was only one sentence. I know you still think about me. I burned it. That was 8 months ago. I still don't use dating apps. I still double-check my locks every night. Sometimes, when I'm driving, I see a woman with long hair and red lipstick in the rearview mirror and feel my chest tighten. My friends say I'm being paranoid. Maybe I am. Ghosting is supposed to be the end of things. You block a number, delete a contact, maybe feel a little guilty, but it's over. The other person fades. You move on. That's how it works. At least, that's how it's supposed to work. But Matthew didn't fade. He followed. Not in the obvious sense. Not with footsteps or knock-knock stalking. He was quieter than that. Smarter. More patient. And it all started with a note under my windshield wiper. We matched in early May, right after the first real stretch of sun broke through the gray Seattle spring. I was in that restless, I should get out there again headspace. Swiping half-heartedly. Not expecting much. Matthew's profile was simple and clean. 3 photos. One with a dog, golden retriever, bonus points. One at a mountaintop, and one black and white shot of him sitting in a coffee shop, staring out the window. His bio read, "Looking for quiet moments and loud laughter. I make a mean French press." It wasn't flashy, but it felt grounded. We matched on a Tuesday. He messaged first. "Matthew, I'll make you coffee if you promise not to ghost after 1 cup." I smiled. Me. Only if it's strong. Matthew, it's stronger than my last relationship. We met 4 days later. Saturday afternoon. Pike Place. He wore a soft gray hoodie, dark jeans, and that kind of easy confidence you can't fake. Not overly charming. Just calm. Present. He smelled like cedar and something faintly herbal, like tea or cologne made for introverts. We walked through the market, got coffee from a little place tucked into an alley, and sat on a bench overlooking the water. He asked about my job, I work in UX design, my favorite soundtrack, Interstellar, and whether I believe in fate. "Not really," I said. He smiled. "That's okay. I believe in it enough for both of us." We kissed before I got into my car. It was soft, warm, promising. We saw each other 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Dinner. A museum exhibit. A slow walk around Green Lake, where he reached for my hand without asking. He was sweet, thoughtful, a little intense, but in a way that felt flattering at first. He remembered everything I said. Quoted it back later, like proof he was paying attention. "You said you hate olives, right? You mentioned your brother lives in Portland. Do you miss him? You once said you feel most alone in elevators." I've been thinking about that. It should have felt romantic. Instead, it started to feel like surveillance. But I ignored that feeling. Because he hadn't done anything wrong. Not yet. Things shifted the night I stayed over at his place. It wasn't planned. We'd had dinner, watched a movie on his couch, and ended up wrapped around each other under a blanket. His apartment was too clean. Not in a neat freak kind of way, more like it hadn't been lived in. No clutter. No laundry. No dishes in the sink. The only personal touches were framed photos on the wall. At first, I didn't notice. But when I walked past them to the bathroom, I paused. They weren't of friends. Or nature. Or travel. They were of women. All black and white. All candid. Or at least made to look that way. All alone. One brushing her hair. Another reading. One asleep. In different apartments. Different rooms. I asked him about them when I came back. He said he was capturing intimacy. "It's part of a project," he said. "Documenting people in their most unguarded moments." "Did they know?" I asked. He smiled. "Of course." Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. I left early the next morning. I didn't text him for a few days. He texted twice. "Matthew, did I do something wrong?" "Matthew, I liked where this was going." I didn't reply. Then he DM'd me on Instagram. Commented on an old post of mine. I blocked him. That should have been it. But it wasn't. 3 days later, I found the note. Folded. Tucked under my windshield wiper. No envelope. Just one sentence. "I'm still thinking about that joke you made about elevators." I froze in the parking lot. My car was parked outside my apartment. In a gated lot. I looked around. No one nearby. I crumpled the note, tossed it, and told myself it was a one-off. That maybe he got drunk. that he'd move on. He didn't. The next morning, there was another note. Same paper. Folded the same way. You look tired today. I hope you're sleeping. I called the police. They said they couldn't do much. He hasn't threatened you, the officer said. Technically, this isn't harassment unless he repeats the behavior. He already has, I said. They took a report. Promised to make a note of it. I didn't feel any safer. I installed a camera by my front door. Left the porch light on all night. Started parking 3 blocks away and walking home just to feel like I had control over who saw me. But it didn't matter. The notes kept coming. Always handwritten. Always short. Always unnervingly specific. You wore red today. I like that color on you. You smiled at the barista. He didn't deserve it. I know you're trying to forget me. I'm patient. I never saw him. Never heard footsteps. Never caught a glimpse. Just the notes. Then he escalated. One night, I came home to find one of my Polaroids pinned to my front door. It was from years ago, me and my dog, sitting on my old balcony. I didn't remember posting it anywhere, but I did remember the shirt I was wearing in it, because it had a bleach stain on the sleeve, and I'd thrown it out 2 years ago. I packed a bag and stayed with a friend across town. Told work I needed a few days remote. Filed for a restraining order. The process was slow. Too slow. I changed my number. Deleted all my social media. Got a new lock. Still, I didn't sleep. The final note came a week later. It was waiting on my friend's doorstep. No one knew I was staying there. No one but Matthew. The note read, "You can run, but I don't need to follow. I'm already where you sleep." I moved again. Out of state. New apartment. I've always hated family dinners. So when I matched with Rachel on Tinder and she invited me out for something chill and low-key, I expected tacos, maybe drinks. A patio somewhere in South Austin. Something casual. What I didn't expect was a table for 9, and her entire family waiting for me. On the first date, Rachel had this disarming smile in her photos. The kind that makes you stop scrolling. Something about her eyes, sharp but kind. Her profile said, "Dog mom, teacher, likes early morning walks and people who aren't afraid of weird questions." She messaged me first. "Rachel, are you emotionally available or just bored?" I laughed out loud and wrote back, "Me, both. But I'm working on it." We hit it off fast. She told me she taught 6th grade science and had a corgi named Pluto. We joked about bad dates, shared Spotify playlists, and swapped ghost stories after she found out I used to live in a supposedly haunted apartment near the UT campus. By the end of the week, she asked if I was free Sunday night. "I know this really good family-run Italian place," she said. "It's quiet, intimate." That sounded perfect. I didn't realize she meant family-run in the most literal sense. The restaurant was in East Austin. I showed up 15 minutes early because I'm that guy, nervous, punctual, always wondering if I've overdressed. I texted her, "Me, I'm here. Want me to grab a table?" No answer. A minute later, I saw her waving from inside. I walked in and froze. She wasn't alone. There were 8 other people at the table. An older woman and man, probably her parents. 2 younger women who looked like sisters. A tall guy with a jawline you could slice bread on. And a couple of kids, maybe 10 or 11, playing with the sugar packets. Rachel stood up, all smiles. "Evan, you made it." She kissed my cheek and gestured to the table like this was completely normal. "Everyone, this is Evan. Evan, this is well, everyone." I laughed nervously. Did I miss a birthday or? "Nope. Just dinner," she said. "We do this every Sunday. It's kind of a tradition." I looked at the table again. There was already a chair for me. A menu. A glass of water. A place set. Like they'd been expecting me. I sat down slowly. The introductions were a blur. Her dad leaned in first. "So, what are your intentions with our Rachel?" I laughed again, thinking it was a joke. He didn't smile. "Just kidding," he finally said, but the pause had been too long. Too serious. Her mom jumped in. Asked what I did for work. Whether I liked kids. If I was religious. If I planned on staying in Austin long term. I hadn't even ordered food yet. Rachel just sat there, sipping wine like this was completely normal. I tried to pull her aside when the waiter came to take orders. "Hey, I thought this was just us." She smiled. "Yeah, I probably should have mentioned. My family's really important to me." I figured, why wait? "Wait for what?" "For you to meet them," she said, like it was obvious. "Dating is about integration. Seeing how you fit." "On the first date?" She shrugged. It saves time. I spent the next hour being grilled like a steak. Her uncle, I hadn't even caught his name, asked if I had any medical conditions he should know about, in case there are genetic concerns down the road. Her cousin asked how much I made per year. Her younger sister wanted to know if I'd ever cheated. One of the kids asked if I was going to be their new uncle. Rachel just kept sipping wine and smiling. When dessert came, her dad raised a toast. To new beginnings, he said, and to good men who know when they've found something special. Everyone clinked glasses. I didn't move. After dessert, I stood up to use the restroom. Rachel followed me. She caught me by the hallway and whispered, "You okay?" I tried to keep my voice light. "That was a lot." She tilted her head. "You didn't like it?" "I mean, they're nice, but I thought this was going to be you and me." "It is," she said. "This is me. My family's part of that. If you're dating me, you're dating them too." I stared at her. She wasn't joking, and she wasn't backing down. I nodded slowly. "Okay, I think I'm gonna head out." Her smile faded. "Seriously?" "Yeah." She looked hurt. Not angry, just disappointed. "I thought you were different," she said. I didn't answer. I just walked out. I thought that was it. Weird date. Red flag. Lesson learned. But 3 days later, I got a Facebook friend request from her mom. Then an Instagram follow from her sister. Then a group text from a number I didn't recognize. Family Sunday chat. "We missed you this week, Evan. Hope everything's okay." I left the chat. Blocked the number. Blocked Rachel. That Saturday, someone rang my doorbell. I live in a duplex. No gate. No security camera. I opened the door. There was a gift basket on my porch. Wine, pasta, a jar of sauce, and a note. "Since you didn't get to take any leftovers. No hard feelings." I didn't text her. Didn't say thank you. I threw the basket away. The next morning, I found a photo slipped under my door. It was me, sitting at the dinner table, looking off to the side mid-chew while Rachel's dad stared at me. No caption. No message. Just the photo. I moved apartments 2 months later. New neighborhood. New number. No more Sunday dinners. No more family traditions. No more Rachel. You can learn a lot about someone by what they keep in their drawers. Not the kitchen kind. Not the office kind. The bedside kind. That's where people keep the stuff that doesn't always come up in conversation. The things they don't put on display, but still keep close. And sometimes those drawers say more than the person ever will. That's how I learned Nico wasn't who I thought he was. Or maybe he was, and just didn't want me to see it yet. I met Nico on Tinder in early February. It was one of those rare weeks where San Diego decided it wanted to pretend to be gloomy for a change. Cloud cover, wind, the kind of weather people here act surprised by even though it happens every year. His photos stood out, black and white portraits, mostly. One of him sitting in front of a mirror, camera in hand. Another of him leaning against a brick wall, almost smirking. His bio read, "Photographer. Quiet until I'm not. Let's skip small talk." I liked that. We matched the same day. He messaged first. "Nico, you look like someone who doesn't waste time." He was right. We met for coffee the next afternoon, and it turned into dinner. He had this calm, steady way of talking, like every word had already been thought through. No filler. No nervous laughter. Just direct eye contact and questions that landed a little deeper than expected. "What do you like that you're embarrassed to admit? Do you ever pretend to be someone else just to see if people notice?" I didn't know if he was flirting or analyzing me. Maybe both. By the end of the night, I wanted to see him again. We went out 2 more times that week. Drinks, then a walk by the harbor. Then a late dinner where we shared a dessert, and he brushed a crumb off my lip like he'd been waiting for an excuse to touch me. Things progressed naturally. You know that moment when you're kissing someone, and everything else just fades out? That's where we were. On his couch, the windows open, the city breathing outside. He pulled me into his lap. I laughed against his neck. He kissed behind my ear and asked, "Want to move this to the bedroom?" I said yes. His room was minimal but curated. A few framed photos, a dark blanket folded perfectly at the edge of the bed. The only splash of color came from the red candle flickering on his nightstand. We were caught in that phase between laughter and heat, when everything is still light but the air is shifting. We kissed. He touched the back of my neck. I could feel the tension building, the kind that makes you forget where you are for a second. Then I reached for the drawer. I wasn't snooping. I just asked if he had protection. He nodded toward the nightstand. I opened it without thinking. And there it was. On top, a black box of condoms. Underneath that, a leather collar, a leash, and a red silicone ball gag. I froze, hands in the drawer, heart suddenly louder than it had been a second ago. I didn't say anything right away, just stared at the items. They weren't hidden. They weren't even buried. Just there, like they'd been waiting. I turned to him slowly, still holding the drawer open. He was sitting on the edge of the bed now, watching me. Calm. His shirt was half undone. His expression unreadable. I held up the collar, unsure if I was asking a question or just showing him the proof. He looked at me and said evenly, "That's not mine." Now there's a specific kind of silence that happens after someone says something like that. It's not the same as awkward silence. It's heavier, slower, like the air itself is trying to figure out what to do. I blinked. You keep stuff that isn't yours in your nightstand. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood up, gently took the collar from my hand, placed it back in the drawer, and closed it. Then he said, "Let's not do this tonight." It wasn't defensive. It wasn't panicked. It was calm. Too calm. I left a few minutes later. No yelling. No confrontation. Just a quiet goodbye, and the feeling that I'd stepped into something I didn't understand. He didn't text that night, or the next day. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was leftover from an ex. Maybe he was into things he hadn't told me about yet. Maybe it was a conversation he didn't want to have without trust. But the way he said it, "That's not mine," just kept echoing. Because it didn't sound like denial. It sounded like a statement, a boundary, a warning. 4 days later, he texted, "Nico, sorry if I made things weird. You didn't do anything wrong." I didn't know how to respond. I typed and retyped a few replies. Eventually I settled on, "Me, do you want to talk about it?" No answer. But he sent a photo. One of his black and white portraits. A woman sitting on the floor, knees drawn to her chest. Back to the camera. Around her neck, barely visible in the shadows, was a collar. The same one. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put my phone down and didn't reply. A week passed. I didn't hear from him again. I'd mostly moved on. I told myself it was just a weird moment. That maybe he was into something I wasn't. That it didn't mean anything. Then I walked into a small gallery in North Park one afternoon. Just killing time before meeting a friend for tacos. I didn't even know Nico's work was being shown there. But there it was. A whole wall of his photos. And in the center, framed, lit, unmistakable, was the same woman from the picture he'd sent me. Only this time, her face was visible. And she looked like me. Not exactly, but close enough to make my chest tighten. Same hair. Same posture. Same curve in the jaw. The title card read, "Subject Unknown, 2021. I left without finishing the exhibit. The next morning, I found something on my doorstep. A plain envelope. No name. Inside, a photo. Of me. In Nico's apartment. Standing beside his bed. Drawer open. Holding the collar. The photo was taken from behind. From the hallway. I don't know who took it. I don't know if the woman in the portrait was real, or if she was just another part of his collection. I don't know what Nico really wanted that night, or what would have happened if I hadn't opened the drawer. But I haven't been on Tinder since. And I don't open drawers in other people's homes anymore. It started with a ping. Not a loud one. Not even alarming. Just a quiet little chime on my phone that said, "Unknown accessory detected near you. This item has been moving with you for a while." I was sitting in my car, engine running, waiting for the coffee shop drive-thru to inch forward. Still half asleep. I saw the notification and thought, weird. Probably someone's Bluetooth speaker. But it wasn't. It was something else. Something planted. And it led me back to Anessa. We matched in mid-June. I remember because it was the same week I decided to take a break from dating apps. And then, of course, I matched with someone actually interesting. Anessa had this kind of effortless edge to her. Her photos weren't over-edited or posed. One was a blurry shot of her laughing at a house party. Another showed her tuning a guitar. In her bio she wrote, "I like rainy nights, horror movies, and people who don't flinch." We messaged for 2 days before meeting up. She was sharp, funny, a little dark in a way I liked. We joked about which of us would turn out to be the serial killer. She said, "If I were one, I'd be the kind that leaves clues." I said, "I'd never get caught." We liked that about each other. Our first date was drinks at a rooftop bar downtown. She wore this deep green jacket that matched her eyes and boots that made her look like she could either break my heart or my kneecaps. Maybe both. We talked for hours. About old movies, weird dreams, the uncanny feeling of being awake at 3 a.m. and not knowing why. She leaned in close when she laughed. Touched my arm when I made her smile. Told me I had still water energy. I didn't know what that meant, but I liked how she said it. She invited me back to her place. I said yes. It wasn't anything wild. We hung out on her couch. Played each other songs we liked. She showed me a sketchbook full of ink drawings, mostly faces, all of them expressive, some downright disturbing. She said she liked watching people and drawing what she thought they were feeling, but not saying. One of the faces looked eerily like mine. I pointed it out. She just smiled and said, "I draw fast." Around midnight, I said I should head home. She walked me to the door and kissed me slow. "Text me when you get back," she said, "so I know you're safe." At the time, I thought that was sweet. Now I wonder if it was something else. We went out 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time, she asked more questions. Where do you usually hang out? What gym do you go to? Do you take the same route to work every day? I told myself she was just curious. Attentive. Maybe a little intense. I didn't see the warning signs. Not yet. The last time I saw her, she was different. We met at a bookstore cafe. She seemed distant. Tired. Her eyes had this hollow pull, like she'd been up all night thinking about something she couldn't say. I asked if she was okay. She said, "I just get attached too easily." Then she added, "But I'm working on it." We hugged. She didn't kiss me. I texted her the next day. No response. I figured she was ghosting. That it was over. I moved on. Then came the ping. That quiet little notification that said something was following me. I tapped on it. My phone brought up a map. A red that had been with me for the past 2 hours. From my apartment, to the gas station, to the coffee shop. I opened the Find My app. It showed a device labeled Unknown AirTag. I'd never owned one. I searched my backpack. Nothing. My coat. Empty. Then I checked under the passenger seat of my car. There it was. A white AirTag, taped to the underside with black electrical tape. I just stared at it for a second, cold blooming in my chest. Whoever placed it there had known exactly where I was for days. Maybe longer. I took it to the police. They asked if I had any idea who could have planted it. I said I'd only gone on a few dates recently. Gave them Inessa's name. They asked for her last name. I didn't know it. She wasn't on social media. Her Tinder account had been deleted. The phone number she used? Disconnected. The address I'd driven to? That apartment was vacant. Had been for weeks. My stomach dropped. I'd been to that place 3 times. Sat on the couch. Drank wine. Used the bathroom. None of it was hers. I started to spiral. What was real? Who had I been talking to? Why had she wanted to know my schedule, my routes, the layout of my life? I have a few stories actually, but I'll tell you about one that I haven't told many people outside of my circle about. I'll try to keep it somewhat short though, even though I'm notoriously terrible at doing that. Anyways, let's move on. This happened back in early 2018. I was a horny 18-year-old at the time, and I'd been on this weird hybrid social media / dating / kink site for a few months. I made a status that was kinda stupid. I forget what I even said, but this one older chick, 46, from the Northwest somewhere sent me a PM about it and mentioned she always enjoyed my sense of humor and wanted to be friends, but she understood if I didn't want to talk. I told her it's okay, and that I appreciated the compliment, and we got to talking innocently for a while. Just some really low-key stuff honestly. I can't remember everything obviously since it was a couple years ago, and that part of our conversation didn't stick out from all the others I'd had on the app. It didn't take very long for things to get sexual, and being an attention-starved 18-year-old dude with some pretty low standards and not really knowing exactly what I wanted out of a romantic relationship, I guess I kinda just let it happen. We did some ERP, erotic roleplay, together, and it turned out we had a few of the same major kinks, so it was fun. After we had enough of a bond over that shit, we talked about each other's lives and situations a bit to get closer. That's where things started getting a little weird. So she told me that she had 2 sons, both of them older than me, but one was a lot closer in age. I mean, that's not really weird by any means, but she mentioned that she had a big thing for guys who were younger, and she made sure to put emphasis on how much younger she was into. It didn't really sit well with me at 18 that this chick was into guys around her son's ages, but I let it slide. Horny and confused are 2 emotions that don't really mix very well, especially in younger dudes. It was extremely conflicting, but like I said, I didn't really make it into a big deal at the time. I can't remember the order of these next two events, but I'll try my best. A few days later, she asks me, King, I need to know right now, are you really 18? So I told her I was. She said, I just wanted to be sure, I've been lied to before. A guy told me once a couple years ago that he was 18, but after we had sex I found out he was really 15-inch, and at that point I'm thinking, okay, maybe he did lie, but it's still pretty weird regardless. I think at that point it was starting to register with my hormonal-ass brain that something wasn't right. I was still dumb about it though, and I didn't break any contact, since at that point in time I was thinking I'd actually be able to sway my parents into taking me up to where she lived because of a college there that I wanted to check out, and maybe I'd get lucky one night. That's a long story in and of itself, but I don't feel like explaining my history with college and all that shit on here, so I won't. She messaged me later and said something along the lines of, my entire week has been unproductive. I can't think about work at all. I've been thinking to myself, I want King and lots of attention, lol. I got some creepy obsessive vibes from that. I don't know what I said in response, but we eventually had another RP where she told me, you're making me want to kidnap you so bad right now. If you come here I don't think I'll ever let you leave. Yeah, that would have been endearing if it was coming from someone who I didn't think was actually going to try and go through with it unironically. The whole thing was just getting to be too much. The obsession, the creepy messages, the fact that she fucked a dude below the age of consent, etc., etc. A few days after I was contemplating telling her I wasn't interested, she tried to bait me in further by saying, you know, King, all the other 18-year-olds I've met have seemed more like kids than adults. Is it weird that I see you more as a full-grown man? And looking back on it, in cases where the main goal is sex and not a relationship, I should have realized people who say that tend to be predatory as hell. I broke contact about a week later, and I haven't heard of her since then. I'm 21 now. I haven't tried to think too much about her. A few years back, my first GF broke up with me and cheated on me, so I was down and after a few months I tried dating apps. I am 27, and back then I was 20, so Tinder etc. was not that huge of a thing back then and here in Europe. Well, I met someone after a few tries and we dated and got together after a few dates. It all went really well in the beginning because we spent time together and we had spare time. Also, we both wanted the best for each other. After approximately 2 months it all went downhill. Really fast. She wanted me to spend 8 days a week with her. She got jealous over all of my friends, for example. I met an old classmate after a few years, which is male. No offense here, I am a straight guy FYI. And she started writing and calling me like crazy, and I asked if anything happened. She said no, and then I was wondering if we can't speak later. Well, she had a fight with me over the pick the friend, and I took of our reunion, and having a nice day. She also got abusive and made fun of me and my hobbies. Once I was helping out in a small festivity in my town, and made good money for working 3 days straight. She called me every 5 minutes what I am doing, and when I come home. I then told her I am at work and I will turn off my phone now, because she is annoying as hell, and I am super busy. She insisted on coming to the place I worked with a friend of her. I said alright, but I don't have time to come out, just to say hi. She and her friends started drinking and 2 random dudes tried to hit them up. She called me again billions of times. I was literally freaking out and telling her if she doesn't stop I let security take her away from here. After work I was going to her place and wanted to ask what this all was about and why she would drink with a stranger. And then she, her girlfriend, and the 2 strangers are coming, and the 2 dudes start shouting my name and all, and I was so pissed off I wanted to leave, and she started a fight that they didn't hit up on her. I was like, yeah, for sure, and if I would have done that, she would have let hell loose. She said it would be different if I do that. The best things are yet to come. She locked me up once in her room and flat. I was shouting for help and called my brother and she threatened me. I was never get physical or anything, but I was needing help. And after that I broke up with her. I told her mother I can't bring up any more energy for this, and I wish the best for her. She understood me and was such a kind person. Well, and my then ex threatened me to kill herself. She wrote me everywhere possible and asked me to come back. I told her one final time I won't, and why in a kind way. She wrote me she takes drugs because her friends tried to help her to overcome me. I was telling her that doesn't make things better, and that her friends are shitty if they support you like that. Now, here we go. Only a few weeks after that I was away with a group of friends eating and drinking in a pub. It was a super funny night, and then on my way home I was called by a stranger. I was picking it up and asked who was there, and the stranger started saying, "Oh hey," a wrong and shorter version of my name. Can you remember me? We exchanged numbers when we were smoking at the club last time. I was thinking, okay, wrong number. Hey there, wrong number. I hate that place and I don't smoke. Sorry, but good luck next time. I was getting off the train, and then I got another call by the same number. I was like, WTF. Picked it up and told him that he is definitely wrong, although he was drunk or something. He then told me, hey, I am a friend of your ex, she feels horrible, and asked me to talk to you and to make you overthink to come back to her. I was so upset and pissed off. I shouted into the phone in the middle of the night. Listen up, buddy. Nice try earlier, but I don't care who you are and if you buy her all the drugs. So don't fucking call me again. I was seeing people while I walked home in the distance in front of my gate. I was having a bad feeling and called my family to please pick me up at the stop. They did, and those guys got off really quick. I locked the gate and saw a plant and a note lying there on our ground. I got her that plant. The note said, F*** KU and your stupid flower and your stupid fake presents you made. At this point I said it is enough. Stalking is absolutely not funny. I called the number back, and then I freaked out really bad. Listen up, mate. If I ever see you again close to my house, I call the cops. I have evidence of her threatening me online, and with phone calls, etc., and also evidence you bothered me multiple times. And the note and the plant. Not so smart. I will tell this all to the police. I hope you regret it all now. After that I haven't heard anything of her. But once I was working in a restaurant at the bar, and she and her friends came there to eat. It was weird, but she told the guys I was her weird ex, and they started bothering me, and I had to get the whole group to get thrown out, and they are not allowed there anymore. Around 10 years ago, now I met a girl on Plenty of Fish, having just recently gotten out of the most horrific and toxic relationship of my life. We had chatted for a week or two before deciding to meet up. Initially she seemed really nice, down to earth, interesting and pretty damn hot. The first meeting was good, though she wanted me to meet her parents, which was a little odd, but I figure that's just how their relationship is, and that they all felt safer if they met me fair enough. We go to the marina and have a coffee and a walk around, and then chill on the beach for a bit. It was really nice and I felt really comfortable. Second meeting we decided to go for a walk. I didn't really know the area very well, coastal town in Sussex, UK. So I let her choose the location, and she said she knew just the place. So we're walking along, and this field rapidly turns into a bog, so I turn to her and say maybe we should go another way, and she pushes me backwards and jumps on top of me, resulting in my head essentially going under the boggy water for what felt like an eternity. All the while I can hear her laughing. I manage to pull my head forward so I can breathe and ask her WTF she thinks she's playing at. She said she was messing around, and thought I was just messing around too. So me being the fool I am, I just figure it's a misunderstanding, and we go back to hers, so I can get cleaned up. Once I'm tidied up I go to leave, only to find all 4 of my damn tires have no air in them. I don't have an air pump, and the time of evening means there are no shops open nearby where I can get one. So I basically have no option but to stay the night. I stay on the sofa as I don't think it's appropriate to shack up in bed with her when it's the second time of meeting her. That's fine. Apparently she understands, and that's cool. I wake up at like 3 a.m. and see she's asleep on the floor next to the sofa. WTF. I make my way to the shops first thing in the morning, get an air pump and pump up my car's tires so I can go. I lived around 20 to 30 minutes away, and by the time I get back I have a missed call and a few texts, cute ones, so I figure that was sweet and don't think any more of it. She wants a third date, so I ask her where she would like to go, and she suggests a local venue, as her mate's band is playing there. So the day comes and I do the chivalrous thing of driving over to pick her up and take us both to this gig. We get there and there's nothing go on, there is nobody around, and the building isn't even open, so I'm pretty confused. She says she must have got the date wrong. Okay, maybe she did. She wants to come back to my place for a bit to see where I live, so yet again, naively, I go along with it. Things get a bit more passionate, and we have a good smooch, and I'm absolutely smitten, like the mug that I am. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, she says she needs to go and just gets up, leaves my flat, and goes to a car parked at the other side of the road, gets in and it drives away. I'm pretty confused. She's a good half hour from her house, and she's literally just got up and left my place and got in a car that was just sat there. Were we followed? I don't hear anything for a couple of weeks until one night shortly after I've gone to bed, maybe 3 a.m. I worked afternoon shifts into late evening. I hear a banging on my window and my phone is ringing. It's her, with her worldly possessions, ready to move in, screaming and shouting to let her in because somehow she's pregnant, It must have been the Immaculate Conception, as we only ever kissed FFS. She's telling me she's transferred from her job in her hometown to the same shop in my town, and that if I don't let her in she will kill herself and my apparently unborn child. Again, we only ever kissed. I refuse to let her in, and a neighbor threatens her, and she eventually leaves. She proceeds to leave me weird voicemails for a good few weeks, almost every day, making threats she was going to kill herself, and then making gargling sounds and screaming. I also notice that she has somehow appeared on a lot of my friends' Facebook friend lists, so I then have to tell a lot of them what is going on. Eventually the calls go away, and I start to move on with my life. I move another 30-odd miles in a completely different direction after meeting my now wife, and I end up getting another job. First day on the new job, and I have to make a delivery to a shop, and I see her in the distance, and just freeze. I then run back to the warehouse of the shop, and figure she hasn't seen me, no problem, job done. Next time I deliver there, guess who is on the back door receiving goods? Also wearing one of my hoodies which I just thought I had lost somewhere. Yup, her. I explain to my bosses about the situation, and tell them I'm not prepared to make deliveries to that shop anymore as I don't feel safe, to which they initially laughed in my face until they saw I was genuinely upset about the situation. So that's fine and I don't have to do that anymore, great. But no, I end up delivering to several other shops in the area, and somehow she is at all of them at some point whilst I am there. This went on for a few months, and I ended up doing more work towards London, so rarely had to go that way after a while, but it always played on my mind every time I was given that route. Thankfully I have left that job now, and never have a reason to go that way again, but I swear I still look over my shoulder from time to time, and I often wonder what would have ended up happening if I had let her in that night, or indeed if I had just put up with it for a little longer. I was part of a group with the woman and several other people. I won't name what we did, but let's just say it was in the space of performing comedy. I didn't know her or several of the other people ahead of time, but as I got to know her, she turned out to be really funny and excellent performer at what we did. She was a real pro. I personally am drawn to competence and talent, so we started hanging out. This was right around the time between Christmas and New Year's, and we would plan some events for the whole group, knowing that we were the only 2 members in town, so we wasn't so obvious to either of us or anybody else what was happening. We went to a movie totally platonically. We went to a nice Asian fusion restaurant platonically, and I invited her over to my house to watch a movie platonically, but with the intention of checking things out. This was like 3 days before New Year's. I will say that things went well, and then it's the only time in my life I've actually done the cliched thing of going on a date, bringing that date home, and then having sex with that date. The afternoon of New Year's Eve, she texted me the innocent question, "What are you doing for New Year's?" Which I took as an essentially platonic question, just asking me what I'm doing. I had been invited weeks earlier to go to the New Year's Eve/housewarming party that my friend, female, was having at her new house. So I told her that's what my plans were. That became the first in a really long line of horrible text messages that realized I'd done the wrong thing with my penis, and I was being punished for it. Her position was that since she and I had had sex, my New Year's plans should be with her. Well, I was able to talk her off the ledge, but I didn't change my plans, and she managed to get herself disinvited before I was going to invite her to the same event. But I don't negotiate with terrorists, yada yada, so I didn't invite her. Things calmed down after that, after she realized I wasn't cheating on her, even though we were not in any kind of declared relationship. We were meeting at my house every week, and after we were done, everybody would take their stuff, put on their coats, and leave, and this one person would do all of that, walk out of the house, pretend to be leaving. Then when everybody was gone, she would come back inside, and we would do the funny bunny. That was pretty much our entire involvement. We didn't actually do anything socially together outside of my house, I think. Anyway, she was getting out of control, and I finally had to break it off with her, so I had a clear heart-to-heart compassionate conversation with her, and she seemed to understand, and then pretend like I didn't exist, and I mean like physically I didn't exist. She stopped speaking to me. She wouldn't even look at me at the times we had to have some interaction. And then, the texts. So, we're broken up. I'd elected to step away from the group that we were a part of, because I felt she was more important to the group than I was. So we really were not seeing each other at all anywhere, because I was also avoiding the community where we would perform. The texts she sent were vile. They were just horrible things about me that were not based on any specifics about me. Like we didn't really spend that much time together, and really didn't know that much about each other, but But she did that thing where she would just describe some other person she must have known, and then say I am built like that person. Every week or two I would get texts that she had figured it all out, and then roll off a conspiracy that most typically was about how I was cheating on her and with who and how I was doing it. I mean, I guess I was a little bit flattered that she thought I was just getting that much ass and have the luxury to make a girl like her just another piece of ass in my harem, despite my behaving in no way that would indicate I regarded her like that. She would make mistakes in logic so large that they were like a gotcha in a government hearing. Like, she accused me of dating her only to make a prior girl I had dated jealous. Even though that other girl broke it off with me, and was also completely unaware of the relationship I had going on because girl I was really seeing and I were actively keeping it a secret from everybody but ourselves. I continued to get texts for months, and I would respond to them, always trying to make things better, or explain something so she didn't feel so hurt, things like that. This Buddhist guy I was talking to in a little bar and explained the situation to, because I was being bombarded by texts as we were sitting there, pointed out to me that on some level I actually liked it, and I know he was right. I have enough training in related areas to know what he means. Basically, I was getting something out of it, or seeking to get something out of it, which was to first off be important to someone, secondly to try and preserve my good guy image, so that nobody ever in the world says something bad about me face with rolling eyes, and helps me keep my attention off of my own sense of loss and bereavement, not just about this relationship, but about all the relationships. As kindly and compassionately as I tried to treat her, I just knew I was not cut out to be one of those people that's abused by their partner verbally and or emotionally, and I wasn't really interested in that, so the Buddhist's advice was to simply stop responding to the texts. He rightly pointed out that I was just giving her what she wanted, so why should she stop? In this case, he was right. From that moment forward, I didn't respond to another text from her, and she stopped texting me about 3 days later or so. Her texts didn't change character at the end. She didn't acknowledge that I wasn't responding to her, and didn't seem to change tactics in response to this fact, but they just stopped. I never got another text from her ever. She's actually a really nice person, and very funny and talented, but also somewhat troubled by stuff from her past, to a slightly larger degree than most of us, so I do wish her well, and I've never wished her ill. It was absolutely my most mature handling of a breakup in my life, but also the worst breakup I had. Oh man, so here is some context. Back in 2003, I was a freshman in college living in Dallas, Texas. I, like many of the young people at the time, decided to check out this whole online dating thing that people had been telling me was super effective for older adults. So, I plug in some personal data, answer some questions, post a picture, and we're off to see the wizard. A few weeks into this little experience, I received a message from literally the most attractive woman I had seen within my pool of matches. We're talking a whole 10-mile radius. I honestly thought the profile was fake and some overweight guy named Greg was just catfishing me. But I figured, let's see how far this goes. Jokingly, I tell this woman that I can't wait to meet up with her, and if we hit it off, take her back to my place. And again, let me preface, I was being overtly forward because there was no way this woman was real. As expected, she responds by telling me how forward that is and how she couldn't believe I would say something like that to her. But for some unknown reason, I didn't let up. In fact, I actually purposely told her that I was being forward because I thought that she'd respond to that based on something she said in her profile. Nothing. No response from her for 4 to 5 days. So I figured I could close the book on Greg and move on to other fish in the sea. Friday hits and my inbox has 3 messages, all from this woman. And much to my surprise, she's included her phone number and requested I call her later that night. For further incentive, she has also included 2 scantily clad images for good measure. I mean, how could I not? I had already convinced myself I was being catfished. So I do what any 18-year-old boy on a dating site and a spare Friday night would do. I called her. We talked for literally hours. I explained that I was pretty sure her real name was Greg and that she lives in her parents' sunroom. She explains that she and her brother live together in a studio apartment and assured me that her name wasn't Greg. Of course, she then sends me several more scantily clad images to my email to assure me further. So there we are, talking, blabbering on, and she had me laughing so much and so loud my sides actually hurt. We were legitimately hitting it off. The noise becomes too much and eventually annoys the hell out of my roommate, so much that he comes into the room and tells me to just ask her out tomorrow so he can get some sleep. I apologize and tell her what's going on, and she agrees to see me the next night. We meet up at a local restaurant close to the downtown area. Fairly expensive, because I kind of want to make an impression. But it's like a family eating establishment casual attire. Not too fancy. I get there 15 minutes early, only to find out that she's already there. When I enter the restaurant, she's in a black dress. Not like a casual black dress, like a fairly revealing maxi cut. Everyone is already staring at her. Servers and restaurant goers alike. I'm wearing jeans and a button-up shirt. The hostess/waitress shows us to a table, and this girl decides that she needs to go to the bathroom before she sits down. So she wanders off. I ask the waitress how long that my date had been, and she tells me that she's been standing around for almost an hour. My date comes back to the table, and before even sitting down orders 2 the most expensive items on the menu, and assures the waitress that she ordered for both of us. She says, "I'm just being forward. I thought you'd appreciate that." The waitress looks at me. I just laughed and agreed. We sit there, in silence, until I ask her why she had been there for more than an hour. She dodged the question and deflected to talk about the pictures that she had sent me instead. At this point I'm a little confused, but I engage. One question after another, and she's asking me about my roommate and our living situation. I explain we are both working towards our degrees, and then naturally, I ask her about her living situation. She tells me that she and her brother basically live on top of one another, and then makes what I had mistakenly assumed was just an off-the-wall joke about how they sleep together. When I paused at her statement, I asked her to clarify. This is when our food shows up. She instantly gets defensive and starts berating me about judging her relationship with her brother. The poor server is still standing at the table holding my plate. I try and explain that I'm not judging her relationship. I feel like I must have just misunderstood her. Because what I had heard is that they have sex with each other. She loses her absolute mind. Or it was never there to begin with. Grabs the steak knife in front of her and jams it through the crotch of my jeans. Screams at the top of her lungs and runs, slams into the server, knocking her and my meal to the floor before she flees the restaurant. The server and I stare at each other. Neither of us able to comprehend what just happened, but also, I had a knife stuck in the seat of the chair with a nice new hole in my jeans. A fellow restaurant goer helped me retrieve the knife. I was a bit concerned I might have been cut, and the server and her boss chatted about the whole situation. They offered to comp my entire meal, but I paid for both. They replaced the one that was all over the ground, and my roommate and I ate like kings that night. Never heard from her again, but kept meeting online women for 11 years after. It isn't so much a creepy girl story as it is a weird girl and her creepy mother. I'm from Sydney, Australia. Her name was Shelley, and I dated her for 8 weeks back from January to mid-March 2013. Her mother Jane took an instant dislike to me, and from what I can figure out the mum and daughter were working together trying to frame me for sexual assault, theft, burglary, trespassing, and a bunch of other things. Her mum told me a bunch of really weird things about Shelley. Shelley is a trust fund kid and is extremely stupid with her money. It's really easy to manipulate her and get her to sign over the rights to her money. One drink and she passes out. She tells me her and Shelley's daily routine down to the minute. She keeps $500 cash in the Bible, and that she has a bunch of diamond earrings she inherited worth thousands of dollars hidden in a drawer in the spare room. She also tells me there's a spare key hidden in the garden gnome in the front yard and a bunch of weird things like that. I assume their plan was to give me an idea to break into their house and steal things. One of the first dates, Shelley drank really heavily and passed out. I took her to hospital and said I live 5 minutes away, so instead of worrying her mum, can you just ring me and I'll pick her up? The mum found out and accused me of trying to change her next of kin details in the first step to try and get her inheritance money. Another time, Shelley suspiciously left her expensive cashmere wool jacket, bag in her purse, which had a fair bit of money in it too, $800 if I remember correctly, at my house while she went to stay at her cousin's house 90 minutes away. Of course her mum found out. Jane rang me demanding her daughter's things back. I said I'll give them back to Shelley when she gets back. She then said no, I need to give them to her tonight, and that I need to drop them off at her house. If I don't, she'll be around to my house with the police and have me charged with theft. I hung up the phone and messaged her saying that she is more than welcome to come around and pick her daughter's things up, but otherwise to leave me the fuck alone. She messaged I need to drop them off at her house, or she'll get the police involved. I messaged back, pick them up at my house or wait until Shelly's back, take it or leave it. Her daughter rang me 10 minutes later, saying I better not damage her stuff, or Mum says you'll have hell to pay. You break it, you bought it. I told Shelly the same as what I told her mum. Her mum is more than welcome to come around to pick them up. But I'm not dropping them off. The mum came around to pick them up the next day, but before she did I asked her to write me a note saying the jacket and bag isn't damaged, and the money is all there, or I'll only give them to her daughter. I had the MP3 recorder on my phone recording the conversation. The phone was in my pocket, but she didn't know what I was doing. She wrote a note saying they weren't damaged and the money is all there, and I asked her, so the things look good and the money's all there? She replied in a bitter tone, yes. You're lucky this time, SK 1711. I got her on tape admitting everything was in good condition and the money's all there. I think her plan was to get the clothes, bag and purse back and damage them herself, and say I stole her money as well, and then blame me and go to the police about it or small claims court or something like that. Luckily nothing came from it though. There's no way ID forgot my wallet if it had that much money in it. Hell, I wouldn't even have that much cash on me. I'd keep it in the bank and get it out of an ATM. And if I'm only 90 minutes away, I'd drive back and get it. Another weird thing Shelly did was ring me and say that her brother rapes her all the time, and she's been raped twice this week by him. And that whenever she tells her mum about it, her mum just laughs and says you're imagining things. I actually knew her brother and had him on Facebook and know for a fact he wasn't in Sydney, nor has been here for over a year. He lived on the other side of Australia. He's in Perth, which is on the other side of the country, and he hasn't been in Sydney for over a year. Americans. That's like me living in Jacksonville, Florida, and Peter living in Los Angeles. It sounded really odd, so I left it alone. I think her plan was to get me to tell the police or something like that, and then her mum would sue me for defamation of character. Another odd thing was neither Shelly or her mum had Facebook. The final straw was she told me and Shelly that she was going interstate to visit her sister for 2 days. She knew that I would go over to her house and try to spend time with Shelly. I did go over that night, and at around 11 p.m. she messaged her daughter, saying that she arrived at her sister's house 3 hours away. Literally 5 seconds after she got the message from her mum, Shelly got really touchy-feely and kept insisting we have sex. I thought it was a bit sus or weird, so I said let's just watch the movie and we'll have some fun after it. Literally 5 minutes after Shelly started making moves on me, her mum quietly opened the door and snuck in the house and came into the living room and went, "Ahu, keep your hands off my daughter." But all I was doing was having a coffee with her daughter and watching a movie. I asked her, "Aren't you supposed to be at your sister's house?" She said that's none of your fucking business where I'm supposed to be. I grabbed her daughter's phone and showed her the message saying that she arrived at her sister's house, and she just told me that she doesn't have to justify herself to me and to get out of her house. I then said the both of you are fucked, and I want nothing to do with the either of you. Shelly, we're officially over. I think her plan was to catch me having sex with her daughter or accuse me of rape or something. As I was leaving the house, her mum told me that she was going to get me into a lot of trouble for all the inconvenience I've caused for her. The police came to my house a week later and said that Shelly's house has been broken into and a bunch of her stuff was stolen. They also said that Shelly, Jane and their neighbor have seen my car driving up and down her street 3 nights in a row. Her neighbor supposedly saw someone the same height, size, and hair color as me dressed entirely in black in Shelly's backyard the night they were broken into. Here's the good part. I was actually doing night shift the entire week and was at work and on camera the entire night they were supposedly burgled. The times my car was supposedly seen driving around her street, I was also working. Witnesses, camera, and GPS on my work car proved I was at work when they supposedly saw my car driving up and down their street. I told the police this and gave them my boss's number so they could get GPS printouts as well as camera footage of me. The police proceeded to do so, and that's all I heard of it. Shelly rang me 4 days later and told me she found her diamond earrings and was really sorry for any inconvenience she's caused me. She sounded really worried too. I assume the police threatened to charge them with making a false report. I think it hit her what sort of shit she could get into filing a false police report, and that I could potentially sue for defamation of character. After everything I went through, I wanted nothing to do with them, so I just let it go and have absolutely nothing to do with them at all. I rang Crime Stoppers, which is like a tip line for the police, and told them what she said about her brother raping her, just in case it has happened in the past, and she was telling the truth. There's this moment after a first date where you either breathe easier or brace yourself. It happens fast, just a sudden flicker of instinct. You walk them to their door, say goodnight, and somewhere in that pause between smiles and goodbye, your gut gives you the verdict. With Cassie, I ignored mine. And I shouldn't have. I hate myself for it now. We matched on a Thursday. I remember because it was snowing and I was bored, sitting on my couch in Denver with a warm quilted blanket over my lap and a beer in my hand. I swiped mostly out of habit. We started conversing. She was quite direct. No fluff. Asked thoughtful questions but didn't overshare. Said she'd just moved into a new place near Capitol Hill. Liked old horror films, hated cilantro, and preferred texting over calling. We met 3 days later for a late afternoon walk, her idea. She said it was less pressure than dinner. I agreed. She showed up in a long coat and black gloves, hair pulled into a low bun. Her voice was softer than I expected, like she was choosing every word before she let it out. We walked through Cheeseman Park as dusk settled in, talked about books, bad roommates, and how Denver felt like it was always on the edge of being something else. She didn't say much about her past, just that she'd moved a lot. After about an hour, she turned to me and said, "Want to come up for tea?" It was early. I figured why not. Her apartment was on the top floor of a narrow brick building with creaky stairs and a heavy front door that slammed even when you tried to ease it shut. Inside, it was dimly lit. A few candles. Mismatched furniture. No TV. There was something still about the place, like it was always listening. She made chamomile tea and sat cross-legged on the floor while I took the couch. We talked more. She asked if I believed in fate. I said no. She nodded slowly, like she respected that answer but didn't agree. When I got up to leave, she walked me to the door and said, "Next time, I'll show you the rooftop. It's quiet up there." I said I'd like that. We texted a few more times over the next week. I sent a photo of my dog. She sent back a picture of her cat curled on a window ledge. Then she stopped replying. "No, I'm busy. No talk soon." Just silence. I didn't push it. I figured she'd lost interest. It happens. 2 weeks later, I got a message from an unknown number. "Unknown. You left your scent on the couch." I stared at it for a while, then replied, "Me? Who is this?" No answer. I deleted the message and went on with my day. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about her apartment. The way the hallway light had flickered. The way she'd paused before unlocking her door. The shadows that seemed a little too still. I brushed it off, until a few days later, when I bumped into a neighbor near her building. I was grabbing takeout nearby and saw the familiar brick facade. The neighbor, an older guy with a bike helmet, noticed me looking. "You know someone in there?" he asked. "Yeah, a girl named Cassie. I was there a couple weeks ago." He frowned. "No one's lived in that unit for months." "Top floor?" "Yeah." He shook his head. "That place is empty. Been empty since November." It was February. I laughed awkwardly. "Must be a different unit." He shook his head again. "Nah, only one on the top floor." "You sure it was Cassie?" I didn't answer. Just walked away. That night, I checked my texts. Her number was gone. Not blocked. Just not in my messages anymore. I checked Tinder. No match history. No profile. It was like she'd never existed. I met Artem on a dating app. He was so charming on our first date at the cute cafe near my work. I was instantly attracted to his dark hair, broad shoulders, and intense brown eyes. He was such a gentleman, and kept me intrigued with his stories of his thrill adventures, including bungee jumping in Asia and safari trekking in Africa. Our second date was a walk through the park with coffees last Sunday afternoon. He told me all about his work as a teacher and how he enjoyed living in the city after growing up in a smaller country. Our conversations flowed so naturally, and I was excited to spend more time with him. When he texted me after our second date to go to a theater performance late tonight, I was so excited. Most guys are always planning dates at a bar. A theater performance felt so sophisticated. Artem was different. He was artsy and adventurous. "I'll pick you up at 7 p.m. I can't wait for you to experience this. You will love the show." This is what I really liked about Artem. He was always so clear and direct. 7 p.m. came, and he was parked right outside my door. "We have to get the tickets from the seller first. It's very hard to get tickets for these types of shows. It won't be long. It's on the way to the theater," he said as I hopped into the car, and he started driving. "I've never heard of the Rhino Theater before. Is it new?" I asked. "Nah, it's super old. It's usually an older crowd, but I enjoy the arts so much. I like going to lesser-known spots. It's more of my vibe. How was Artem so cool? I couldn't stop smiling thinking about how thrilling my life was going to be dating him. Maybe our next date, I could finally introduce him to my friends. They would be so intrigued by his charm. We pulled up into a quiet neighborhood with a few houses on the block. The roads were dark now, but one streetlight was on, flickering at the end of the road. We pulled up, and I saw a tall, lanky guy with his hood on standing under the light. Artem pulled up near to the guy and parked the car. The light kept flickering, and the radio started to turn to static. Artem turned it off, and his eyes focused in on the clock. There's the guy. 7:18 right now. I have to wait till 7:20 to meet him. I laughed. I didn't know you were into superstitions. He's very particular on these tickets. They are very rare, you see. So mysterious. I'm excited. I went to turn on the radio again, but Artem swatted away my hand. No music, he will hear. He enjoys the quiet. I looked to the guy standing outside, and noticed he hadn't moved this whole time, his face still hidden under his large hood. Ah, there it is, 7:20. I'll be right back, my dear, Artem said as he kissed me on the cheek and hopped out the door. I watched him as he walked up to the guy. I couldn't see him anymore as Artem was blocking him from my view. I saw the two stand there, and didn't notice any movement. After a few seconds, Artem turned around and headed back to the car. It was strange as the guy stood there, not moving. Got the tickets? He flashed the two shiny ticket stubs with the largest grin on his face, and began to drive away. What did the guy say? I barely saw him move. Such a strange place to sell tickets, don't you think? I asked. Just because you didn't see him move, doesn't mean it didn't happen, Artem laughed. You're so funny. How could you see in this dark anyways? Oh yeah, he reminded me, don't get the popcorn today, it's Tuesday. Asterisk. Popcorn isn't good on Tuesdays? You ask a lot of questions, don't you? This will be a fun time. He smiled at me and kept driving. We finally got to the spot. The area looked abandoned with no buildings, but the theater, which was a warehouse with no windows, and with a few cars parked outside it. We parked near the other cars, and walked up to what looked like a back entrance with light coming out of the doorway. This does really look off the beaten path. I do like these hipster-type places. You are really in for a treat then. Artem held my hand as we walked up to the doorway, and he knocked 3 times, each knock with a few-second pause in between. An older gentleman opened the doors, and I saw the bright lights and colorful red walls in the lobby inside. Artem handed the gentleman our tickets, and we walked inside. The carpet was so soft, and the lobby was filled with pictures of theater performances. Right in front of us was the concession stand that was filled with different variety of candy and popcorn all along the wall. This place looked so magical. Let's get some snacks first, the theater is to our left. We have a few minutes, we definitely can't be late, Artem said. There was no one else around, so we walked up to the concession stand and got served right away. The server behind the counter had a really nice red suit uniform on. I saw his gold-plated name tag. Hi Alec, what's the best thing you have here? I asked. Newbie, you are definitely in for a treat. I would recommend everything, but if you have a sweet tooth, this chocolate is great. I look over at Artem to see if he approved. Whatever you want, that looks great. Okay, we'll take that chocolate. And how about popcorn? I asked. Are you sure? Alex said, looking over to Artem, whose smile had faded from his face. Just the chocolate is good. We don't want to cause a disturbance with popcorn munching. Alex said as he paid for the chocolate snacks. I guess we follow silly rules. I jokingly say to Artem, but his serious look didn't change. This chocolate will be great. Let's get to our seats. Artem took my hand, and we walked to the large, heavy theater doors. A little push, and the doors flew open, revealing a large opera-style theater with hundreds of seats. The theater had so many people sitting inside, I was shocked as the parking lot was fairly empty. The majority of the front was packed. Most people looked excited and quietly whispered while waiting for the performance to start. Artem and I sat near the back, having lots of space to ourselves as the back wasn't as packed as the front. In front of us, I saw a very old couple sitting a few seats down from us. They must have been in their late 60s and were dressed very nicely. The lady wearing a nice brown shawl around her, and the man wearing a tweed blazer. Everyone looked so sophisticated at this theater. You comfy? I'm so excited for you to experience this. I come every week. Artem said gleefully. Yes, very comfy and ready for the show. Also, you come every week, doesn't it get boring? Nah, there's always something different each time. The actors really make the show. It's about to start now, the lights in the theater started dimming, and the stage curtains opened. On the stage, a few younger actors around our age walked out, looking a bit petrified and the stage lights blinding them. They slowly walked around the stage, looking at the audience. Their faces looked pale and nervous. I looked over at Artem, and he looked like a kid at a candy store, the biggest smile on his face. "Oh look, there's Clary. I dated her, she looks good in that outfit," he whispered to me as a girl walked slowly onto the stage. The actors started looking at each other, and then one finally spoke. It sounded like Shakespeare. I couldn't understand what they were saying. All the actors were using soft voices, and generally looked confused and nervous. After 20 minutes of them walking around and random props coming onto the set, finally the curtains closed, and the lights turned on a bit indicating an intermission. "What was that?" I could barely understand. "Are they amateurs?" I whispered. Artem laughed. "Don't worry, you'll start to understand it over time, they all do." I glanced around the audience, and noticed everyone was still. Maybe the intermission is very quick. I looked over and noticed the older couple that was sitting close to us. The woman had turned her head and was staring directly at me. After she saw me notice her, she turned away. This theater was starting to be very creepy. I took out my phone to look at it, and Artem quickly patted me. "No need to check your phone, dear. It's a date. Also, there is no cell service here anyways. I'm going to quickly go to the bathroom," I said, putting my phone away. "Okay, be quick. The show will start soon. It's right inside the lobby." I got up and walked towards the lobby, and everyone in the theater was sitting still in their seats, creeping me out even more. How were they enjoying this performance? I got into the bathroom and checked my phone. Still no service. Must be a dead zone area. After a few moments, I heard the bathroom door creak open and turned around. The old lady who was sitting in front of us was standing at the doorway, looking at me. "Hi, enjoying the show?" I asked, trying to make small talk. She just started back at me and didn't say a word. She walked up to the sink and didn't turn it on, now just staring at the mirror. "What is this place?" I was hoping she would tell me something. She turned around and looked at me. I could now see her eyes. They were such a deep dark black. She continued to stare at me, and then just walked back out the bathroom door. I felt a cold shiver run through my body. This creepy place was starting to really scare me. Where had Artem brought me? Why was this old lady always staring at me? I started to think if I should just call an Uber and get out of here. I didn't know if I was being crazy. Sure, it was a weird performance, but Artem had been fun. I didn't want to ruin it with one bad date. Maybe everything was just in my mind, and I needed to relax. This was probably a different type of sophisticated art I wasn't used to. I walked back into the lobby. No one was around still. I checked my phone again. Still no reception. I started walking to the concession to talk to the guy from earlier. Maybe he could tell me more about this place. Alec was there standing behind the counter, but I noticed his body was frozen, exactly like a statue, not even blinking. How can this be? I thought. I had just spoken to him before the show started. I walked up to the door to the entrance of the place, hoping I could get some reception outside. I needed to Google this place and learn more about it, and also tell my friends my location. This date was not going how I thought. This place was truly strange. How could Alec be frozen still now? This wasn't just in my head now. The doorman was no longer at the door entrance. I tried pushing it open, but the door wouldn't budge. He must have locked it. I started to panic as I was getting scared now. What have I gotten myself into? This was becoming so sketchy, I thought. I didn't know what to do other than play it cool with Artem. I had to just get out of here safely. I walked back into the theater and closely looked at the audience. I started to notice they were statues too. No one was moving or blinking. I hurried to my seat and sat next to Artem, trying not to show him my panic. He was looking so giddy still. I was hoping this would all be over soon, and I could be home safe at my place. "What took you so long? The show is about to start again." How was he having so much fun with this? He was not the guy that I had imagined. I was reapplying my makeup. "What do you want to do after the show ends?" I was hoping he wouldn't notice my sweat and keep things normal with talking about afterwards from this place. Artem just laughed. "Getting a little bit ahead, aren't you? Just enjoy this second half. You'll begin to love it. They all do eventually." I looked over at the couple who was sitting near us. The lady was back in her seat. They didn't move at all. I wondered if they were statues too. The lights dimmed again, and the actors came back onto the stage. I started to think if they were being forced to perform, it would explain their terror and fright on stage. The actors again spoke cryptic lines and walked about the stage. I couldn't focus. My mind was running through endless possibilities. I started beating myself up for not paying attention on how we drove here. Even if I could get outside, I had no clue where we were. Everything was so deserted. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the show ended. The actors took a bow on stage and stood as the curtains closed in front of them. I heard clapping but looked closely and noticed the audience members weren't moving. Artem was clapping furiously, so I joined in to fit in with him and play along, hoping this date would end soon. Wasn't that exhilarating? That last actress, she's Emma. I know her too. This was her first show. She did fantastic. Yeah, she was great. I tried to say with some enthusiasm. You look tired. Let's get you home. You'll need a lot of rest. We walked into the lobby, and I saw the front entrance door was propped open. I felt a sigh of relief. I could finally get outside away from this place. We got into the car, and Artem drove me home. He couldn't stop talking the whole drive about the show, and the people he knew, and the lines they said. My mind was just focused on getting home. Here we are. I hope you had a good night. They'll text you later. Bye, I said as I ran out his car as quickly as I could. I am never going to see this guy again. That was definitely the creepiest thing I had ever experienced or even heard of. I got inside and got ready for bed. I texted my friend's group chat saying I have to call them tomorrow and tell them all about this creepiest date ever. Everyone was asleep, so I didn't get a reaction from them yet. I noticed the light from the street glaring into my room as I was about to go to sleep. As I went to close the blinds, I looked outside and noticed someone standing under the street light across the street from my place. It was very late now and unusual for someone to be outside, so I looked closer. My body went numb as I noticed the person was the old lady from the theater. She was still wearing the brown shawl and staring directly at me. I jumped and quickly closed the blinds and hoped into bed. What was she doing here? How did she know where I lived? I thought. My body was starting to sweat, but I just told myself it was all in my imagination as I laid in the fetal position under my covers. Just as I closed my eyes, my phone dinged. I looked over at it, and it was a text from Artem. I hope you were paying attention to the show. You'll have to memorize those lines sooner or later. The show must go on. I met a girl online. She seemed normal enough, so we ended up going out for a drink. I found out that night that she actually lived an hour away in a rural town, but whatever. Well, we went out, had a drink, then went to go play pool. We drove over in my vehicle, and when we got to the pool hall she checked her phone and saw she had a text from her ex-BF. She proceeded to cry incessantly. I was trapped. I didn't know what to do, so I offered to take her back to her car. She said she wasn't sure if she could drive, and she asked if I would take her home. I declined, saying it wouldn't be a good idea because A, her car was like a mile away. B, she lived an hour away. C, how in the hell did she plan to get to her car the next day? So she agrees for the night to end, all the while apologizing vigorously. The next day she texts me, apologizes, and offers to buy me lunch. She seemed alright when we were getting to know each other, and I was bored, so I figured what the hell and gave her another shot. She brought her kids to the lunch. When I saw them get out of the car, I texted her and said that it wasn't okay for me to meet them. She became irate and said her sitter canceled at the last minute. Even though the drive was an hour long from her house, she didn't find it important to ask if it would be weird for her kids to come. It was at that point that I stated I was no longer interested. Now for the creepy part. 2 days later she texted me, but I didn't respond. She kept at it and kept asking if I wanted to go out the next weekend. After multiple texts I messaged her and said I wasn't interested and I had plans to take my friend out for her birthday. This resulted in even more irate messaging about how she wasn't comfortable with me going out with other girls, and so forth. This resulted in her getting blocked. Turns out she took a guess on where we would go, since there was only one nightclub in the town, and she showed up. I had to tell the birthday girl that I was leaving, and to call me when she was ready to go. My night was ruined. Birthday girl got home okay, in case you're wondering. But wait, there's more. A couple of weeks after that there was an ice storm, and the power had gone out in the area. I ended up going over to a friend's house to hang out, since they had a generator. We were playing cards and enjoying ourselves. Suddenly I get a text from a number I didn't recognize. Are you alright? I'm really worried, the message read. I'm fine, who is this? I replied. It's creepy girl, she responded. I ignored it and put my phone down. The next message sent chills down my spine. I'm really worried. I'm standing outside your house, and all the lights are off. Are you sure you're okay? She had never been to my house, and I had never given her my last name. My final message before blocking her involved not contacting me, or I'd call the police. It turns out she was a secretary or some shit for a police department, and she ran my tag to find out where I lived, drove over an hour to my house in the midst of an ice storm, then got a new number all so she could check up on me. Now to answer a few questions. This all happened 6 or 7 years ago, so not recently by any stretch. While I can't prove she ran my plate, I was using a Google Voice number attached to an email address which didn't have any of my personal information, and was used for this very purpose. Joke's on me, I guess. I found out she worked at the police department through simple conversation online. We talked for about 2 weeks before meeting, so I knew where she worked among other things. I didn't turn her in, and I won't. She was a single mother, and the father of the kids was in another state. She had supposedly been abused, and turning her in would have gotten her fired and/or arrested. While I realized what she did was illegal, I didn't feel it would be right to put those little kids through that. I have no idea what she did with the kids during the ice storm. Her parents lived in the area, so I assume they went there. I have no idea where she is, but I'm pretty sure she's no longer at the police department. I'm fine and haven't heard from her since. I also don't live at that house, so surprise visits probably aren't a thing. I was 18 and competing in a fighting tournament. As I'm milling about between fights, this girl appears by my side and inserts herself into the conversation. It doesn't take long to realize she was trying to get my attention. I play coy and continue talking as if she wasn't there. It's awkward, and I don't know what else to do. So she escalates by clinging onto my arm, which I immediately break and inform her I have a girlfriend and am not interested. Before she can respond, I'm called for my next fight, and after the fight she goes right back to trying to get my attention and latching onto me. I tell her to stop and walk away to another group of friends and competitors. After each fight, she is right there waiting for me and doesn't seem fazed one bit that I'm doing my best to ignore her. This continues all the way until my last fight, and I'm done being polite. Both myself and my opponent made it to this last fight undefeated. It was a long, grueling, evenly matched fight. As we are both nearly exhausted, he throws everything he has left into one strike. It connects and I'm down unconscious. Girl rushes in and tells my friends and the marshals that she is my new girlfriend and that she will take me to the hospital. Even though they were skeptical, they let her lead me away. I came to a few hours later. As my days started to lift, I found myself in my bed, naked from the waist down, with her baked and bouncing on top of me. I have no memory of how I got home, or how long it's been. She notices I'm starting to become lucid again and speaks to me, but I can't understand. I'm so confused. I try to speak but can't. This is right about the time a friend comes by to check on me and see if I made it to the hospital. When nobody answered the door, he let himself in, and I'm so glad he did. My friend lays into her and shames the F out of this girl and demands she leave immediately. My homie knows me and my girlfriend, and he isn't buying her claim that we are a couple now. I'm still very dazed when we get to the hospital, where I'm diagnosed with a severe concussion. While coming to with a stranger, putting me inside her was f-ing traumatic. The real trauma for me was telling my girlfriend. I was in tears, apologizing for cheating on her. Back then, most were of the mindset that it's impossible for a man to be attacked, and that if it happened it's because the guy wanted it. It took me a decade to realize that this was the R word. I cracked a joke after telling this story. If you reverse the genders, this story becomes totally fucked up. I said with a laugh. And the sudden realization it was fucked up no matter how you slice it. My girlfriend was very understanding, however. While neither of us recognized it as this, she forgave me, and we moved on with what would be an 11-year relationship. I forgot to include a detail that would highlight what a creeper this girl really was. My friend later told me that she sat on my doorstep and waiting for a ride to come pick her up. It was her 28-year-old boyfriend. She was 16. Gross. I was feeling lonely/bored, so I decided to message a girl I wouldn't normally even consider messaging. She had a rather obvious birthmark on her face and was a larger girl. Her profile read really nicely, and she just reminded me of the good girls in high school that have done no wrong. Someone fun to be around with no drama. I message her, and we start talking via IM. She seems nice enough and asks for my phone number. She calls me at 11 p.m., and we talk for a while. It gets late, and things turn to sexy talk. She asks what fetishes I have, which I say that I'm not sure she wants to hear them because they are kind of different. At the time I thought so, but not anymore. She blurts out, Well, I'm sure they aren't as different as mine. So I tell her to go first. I like dogs, her. Dogs are okay, I like cats. Wait, you like dogs? Me. Yeah. I've 3. Well, 2 'cause one didn't really work, her. Long silence / shocked look on face. Me. You don't like that, do you? I knew I shouldn't have said anything. Can't you just forget it? Her. No. I'm pretty sure I can never ever forget them, no matter how hard I try. Me. It's okay though. I got paid $1,000 a month for a year by a guy who filmed me doing it, but from the side so you couldn't see my birthmark. 2 videos were for personal use, and 1 has been released in Mexico only. Her. To say the least, I stopped talking to her and blocked her. I realize it's legal in some states, but no. Just no. Not for me. So to sum up here, girl who had sex with dogs justifies it with being paid to be filmed having sex with dogs. Asks me to forget that about her. Story 2. Holy Batman, I'm a Wiccan hippie. A girl messaged me and we had some things in common, video games, anime, and she was cute enough and lived about 30 minutes away. After talking for a while, she sends me multiple pictures of herself, full body clothed pictures, and she appears to be a short blonde girl wearing a Batman shirt, not a beanpole, but not fat by any means. We agree to dinner. I had the day off, so I make the drive to her town to pick her up. I get lost and call her and stay on the phone till I pull up to her standing outside. She looks nothing like her pictures. She is tall, has messy medium-length blonde hair, and easily weighs more than me. She has on a rainbow/leopard print dress and tight green leggings, as well as glasses she didn't have on in any of her pictures. She looked like a love child between Cyndi Lauper and Lou Albano, and a hint of Weird Al. As soon as I saw her I thought, great, what have I got myself into? But I'm a gentleman, right? And went on the date anyways. We decided on sushi, as there was a restaurant close by she was a fan of. Once at the restaurant we got out of the car, and in the 20 feet between the car and the restaurant she tried to hold my hand. I pulled away and NOL, noped out loud. I think it was like this. Pulls away, no. She looked really offended, but I explained that holding hands, especially in public, is a sign of togetherness, and we certainly weren't together as I had just met her. So then we went inside the restaurant where everyone spoke very unbroken English, a sure sign of bad sushi. Upon eating dinner, she tells me about how she has gotten kicked out of the restaurant before, and they don't like her their face palm. From there we go to a park, because I'm too scared to end the date early or too nice, while I hint around about having chores at home to do. We walk around the park where she smokes, knowing I don't like smoking around me, and then she talks about a hill in the park where someone tried to rape her, like it is no big deal, even laughing about it. I take her home, it's about 8 p.m. Once back to her house she says, now what? As we sit in the car. I shrug and say, I don't know. Okay, you go inside and I leave. She then says, I really want to cuddle, you should come inside. To which I respond, I have laundry to do at home. Which was true. At this moment she gave me the dirtiest, F off, look I've ever been given, and gets out of the car slamming the door. I also failed to mention that she wore a vial of oils she bought at the Ren Fair around her neck, didn't wear perfume but these hippie-smelling oils, and was an uneducated hippie Wiccan, which as an atheist is just not attractive to me, at all.